The Indiana Fever thought they had everything under control. A smart roster move. A quiet contract decision. A situation that would stay behind closed doors. But all it took was one honest answer from Justine Pissott to flip the entire narrative. This wasn't supposed to be a story. It was supposed to be simple. A young rookie placed on a developmental contract. A chance to learn, grow, and wait her turn. That's how it usually goes. Most players accept it. Most players stay quiet. Most players play the long game. But Pissott didn't follow that script. When she was asked about her contract, she didn't give the typical, "I'm just grateful to be here" answer. She didn't hide behind safe words or media training. Instead, she said something real. Something honest. Something that instantly made people pay attention. She made it clear that the developmental contract isn't enough. And that one sentence changed everything. Now this isn't just about a rookie trying to prove herself. This is about value. This is about opportunity. And more importantly, this is about whether a team that's trying to build a contender around stars like Caitlin Clark is making the right decisions behind the scenes. Because here's the truth nobody can ignore. When a player believes she deserves more, and starts showing it, keeping her in a limited role doesn't just become difficult, it becomes dangerous. And now, the Fever are stuck in a situation they didn't expect. The question is no longer if Justine Pissott is ready. The real question is, are the Indiana Fever ready for what comes next? At the center of this entire situation is something most casual fans don't fully understand: the developmental contract. On paper, it sounds like a great opportunity. A young player gets to stay with the team, practice with professionals, learn the system, and slowly develop into a future contributor. It's sold as a stepping stone. But in reality, it's much more complicated. For the Indiana Fever, this wasn't just about giving Justine Pissott a chance. This was a calculated financial decision. A way to manage the salary cap, while still holding onto a talented player. Instead of committing to a full roster spot, they placed her in a position where she could stay in the system without taking up valuable cap space. From a front office perspective, it makes sense. But from a player's perspective, it's a completely different story. Because here's the reality: developmental players do almost everything a regular roster player does. They attend practices. They travel with the team. They sit in meetings. They prepare like professionals every single day. The only difference: they don't get to play. And not just occasionally, they are limited. Restricted. Controlled. That's where the problem begins. For a player like Pissott, this isn't just frustrating, it's limiting her career momentum. She's not coming into the league as someone who needs years to figure things out. She already has size, skill, and confidence. At 6 feet 4 inches, with a shooting ability that stretches defenses, she fits perfectly into the modern game. So when a player like that is told, "Wait your turn," it doesn't always sit well. And honestly, it shouldn't. Because development only works if there's actual opportunity attached to it. If a player is stuck watching games instead of playing in them, improvement slows down. Confidence can drop. And more importantly, visibility disappears. In professional sports, if you're not on the court, you're not proving anything. That's why her statement matters so much. When Pissott said the contract isn't enough, she wasn't complaining. She was acknowledging a gap between her current situation and her actual potential. That's a huge difference. And it sends a message. Not just to the team, but to the entire league. It tells coaches, scouts, and executives that this is a player who believes she belongs. A player who isn't satisfied with just being included. A player who wants to compete now, not later. That kind of mindset is powerful. But it also creates tension. Because now the Fever front office has a decision to make. Do they stick with their original plan and treat her as a long-term project? Or do they adjust based on what they are seeing and hearing? Neither option is easy. If they keep her on the developmental contract, they risk frustration building over time. And frustration in professional sports doesn't stay quiet forever. It shows up in body language. It shows up in interviews. It shows up in how players talk to the media. And once that happens, the situation becomes harder to control. But if they decide to promote her to a full roster spot, that creates another problem: money. The WNBA salary cap is tight. Every contract matters. Every dollar is calculated. The Fever have already committed significant money to key players like Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and others. That means there isn't much flexibility left. So promoting Pissott isn't just about giving her a chance, it might require cutting someone else. And that's where things get uncomfortable. Because now it's not just a basketball decision. It's a business decision. A numbers game. One player's opportunity could mean another player's exit. That's the reality of professional sports. And it puts the Fever in a difficult position. What makes this even more interesting is timing. This isn't happening mid-season. This is happening early, before everything is settled. Before rotations are fully locked in. Before roles are completely defined. That means the window to make a change is still open. But it also means the pressure is higher. Because if the Fever wait too long, they risk losing control of the situation entirely. And that brings us to the bigger issue: leverage. Right now, Pissott has more leverage than people realize. Why? Because she's showing potential at the exact moment teams are still evaluating their rosters. Other franchises are watching. They are paying attention. They are always looking for undervalued talent, especially players with size and shooting ability. That combination is rare. And when something is rare, it becomes valuable. So even though she's on a developmental contract, that doesn't mean she's invisible. In fact, situations like this often attract even more attention. Because it raises a simple question across the league. If her own team isn't fully using her, could we? That's how opportunities shift. That's how players move. And that's exactly what makes this situation dangerous for the Fever. Because the moment another team believes they can offer her a better role, things can change very quickly. And if that happens, the Fever won't just lose a player, they'll lose a potential asset they invested time and development into. All because of one decision. A decision that was supposed to be quiet, controlled, and strategic. But now, it's none of those things anymore. Now it's public. Now it's being discussed. Now it's being analyzed. And most importantly, now it's being questioned. Because once a player says, "This isn't enough," the situation stops being about patience and starts being about urgency. Now that the situation is public, everything changes for the Indiana Fever. What could have stayed an internal decision is now being watched, discussed, and slowly turning into pressure from fans, media, and even within the locker room. Because in professional sports, once something becomes visible, it doesn't go away. It grows. And right now, that pressure is building around one simple idea. If Justine Pissott is good enough, why isn't she playing? That question alone can create serious tension inside a team. At first, it might not look like a big issue. Coaches continue with their plans. Veterans keep their roles. Rotations stay the same. But underneath all of that, something starts shifting: expectations. Because when a young player openly says she wants more, it forces everyone to pay attention. Teammates notice it. Coaches hear it. Front office executives definitely feel it. And once that happens, the situation becomes harder to ignore. For a team like Indiana, this is especially tricky. They are not rebuilding anymore, they are trying to compete. With players like Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, expectations are already high. The goal is to win games, not experiment endlessly. But here's the problem. When you're trying to win, you also need the best players on the floor. And if there's even a small chance that Pissott can help the team right now, keeping her on the bench starts to look like a risk. Because every missed opportunity matters. Imagine a close game. Tight score. Defense packed in the paint. The team needs spacing, someone who can stretch the floor and hit a shot under pressure. That's exactly the type of role Pissott can fill. But if she's not in the rotation, that option doesn't exist. And when moments like that happen repeatedly, questions start to get louder. Not just outside the team, but inside it too. Players want to win. And players notice talent. If someone in practice is performing at a high level, but not getting a chance in games, it creates quiet conversations. Why isn't she playing? What's the plan here? Are we using our best lineup? Those conversations don't always reach the media, but they exist. And over time, they can affect team chemistry. That's the hidden side of situations like this. It's not always about one player being unhappy. It's about how that situation influences everyone else. Because fairness matters in a locker room. If players feel that decisions are based only on contracts or status instead of performance, it can create doubt. And doubt is dangerous for a team trying to build momentum. Now, let's look at the coaching side. Head coach Stephanie White is in a tough position. Her job is to win games. That means trusting her system, her rotations, and her experienced players. But at the same time, she can't ignore what she sees in practice. If Pissott continues to perform, hitting shots, showing confidence, proving she can contribute, then keeping her out becomes harder to justify. And coaches feel that pressure too. Because every decision is evaluated. If the team struggles offensively, people will question rotations. If spacing becomes an issue, people will point to players who aren't being used. If games are lost, every unused option becomes a topic of discussion. That's how pressure builds in real time. Slowly. Quietly. Then all at once. And it doesn't stop there. Fans are another major factor. In today's game, fans don't just watch, they analyze. They follow players, highlights, practice clips, interviews. The moment they see potential in someone, they start asking questions. And if Pissott shows flashes, even in limited minutes or preseason moments, that attention will grow. Social media will amplify it. Clips will circulate. Conversations will start. Why isn't she getting more minutes? She looks ready. Give her a chance. That kind of momentum can't be controlled by the team. Once fans pick a player to support, it becomes part of the narrative. And narratives are powerful. They shape how teams are viewed. They influence media coverage. They even affect how decisions are perceived. For the Fever, this creates a balancing act. They need to stick to their long-term plan, but also respond to what's happening right now. Too much patience, and they risk missing out on immediate impact. Too much reaction, and they disrupt their structure. Either way, it's not simple. And then there's one more layer to this, the league itself. Other teams are watching all of this closely. Not just casually, but strategically. Because situations like this create opportunities. If a player is showing ability, but not getting a real chance, it signals something to the rest of the league. There might be value here. And when that thought starts spreading, things can change quickly. General managers take note. Scouts pay attention. Agents start having conversations. It doesn't mean a move will happen immediately, but the possibility is always there. And that possibility adds even more pressure on the Fever. Because now it's not just about managing one player. It's about protecting an asset. If they wait too long to make a decision, they could lose control of the situation completely. And that's the worst-case scenario. Because at that point, it's no longer their choice, it's someone else's opportunity. All of this started with one honest answer. One statement that didn't follow the usual script. But now, it's turning into something much bigger. A test of decision-making. A test of patience. A test of leadership. And as the season gets closer, that pressure is only going to increase. Because eventually, the Fever won't be able to stay in the middle. They'll have to choose. At this point, the situation is no longer just internal. It's not just about the Indiana Fever, their roster, or their salary cap decisions. Now, the entire league is quietly watching what happens next. And in professional sports, that's when things become dangerous. Because once other teams start paying attention, the situation shifts from a team problem to a league-wide opportunity. Think about how front offices operate. Every team is constantly searching for value, players who are talented but not fully utilized, players who can be developed into key contributors, players who fit modern systems. And right now, Justine Pissott fits that description perfectly. She has size. She has shooting ability. She has confidence. And most importantly, she has something to prove. That combination is exactly what other teams look for. Because players like that don't stay hidden for long. Once a player shows even a glimpse of potential, especially in a structured system like Indiana's, scouts start asking questions. They look at practice reports, preseason minutes, shooting efficiency, positioning, and body language. They analyze everything. And if the conclusion is that a player isn't being fully used, that's when interest turns into action. Now, here's where things get more serious. Under league rules, situations like this can open doors faster than people expect. If another team believes Pissott can contribute immediately, they don't just sit back and watch. They explore ways to bring her into their system, legally, strategically, and quickly. That's how roster shifts happen. Not through big headlines, but through smart timing. And timing, right now, is critical. Because the Fever are still early in their decision-making process. They are still evaluating rotations. Still figuring out chemistry. Still balancing development with competition. But other teams, they don't have that same hesitation. If they see value, they move. That's what makes this situation risky. Because Indiana might still be thinking long-term, while another team is thinking right now. And that difference in mindset can change everything. Let's take a step back and look at it from a bigger perspective. The WNBA is evolving. The game is faster. Spacing matters more. Shooting is more valuable than ever. Players who can stretch the floor, especially at 6 feet 4 inches, are not easy to find. That's exactly why someone like Pissott stands out. She's not just another rookie trying to find her place. She fits a specific role that teams actively look for. A role that creates space for stars, opens driving lanes, and forces defenses to adjust. So when a player like that isn't fully integrated into a system, it raises a simple question across the league. Why not? And when that question doesn't have a clear answer, it creates interest. Now imagine this scenario. Another team is struggling with spacing. Their offense feels crowded. Defenses are collapsing into the paint. They need a shooter, someone who can stand on the perimeter and make defenders think twice. Then they look at Pissott. They see her height. They see her release point. They see her confidence. And they start connecting the dots. This player could help us. That's how fast things can change. Because in sports, talent doesn't wait forever. If there's an opportunity somewhere else, players take it. Teams create it. And situations shift quickly. For the Fever, this creates a sense of urgency they didn't originally plan for. Because now they are not just developing a player, they are protecting her. Protecting her from being undervalued. Protecting her from being overlooked. Protecting her from becoming someone else's success story. And that's a real possibility. We've seen it before. Players who didn't get chances in one system go somewhere else and thrive. They get minutes, confidence, and a clear role, and suddenly they look completely different. Not because they changed, but because their opportunity changed. That's the risk Indiana is facing. Because if Pissott leaves and succeeds elsewhere, it won't just be a roster mistake, it will be a visible one. Fans will remember it. Media will talk about it. And every future decision will be viewed through that lens. That's the player they let go. No front office wants that. Which is why the next move matters so much. The Fever need to decide if they truly see Pissott as part of their future, or if she's just a temporary piece in a crowded system. Because if it's the first option, they need to act. Not later. Not eventually. Now? Because waiting only increases the risk. And the longer this situation stays unresolved, the more attention it gets. More attention means more discussion. More discussion means more pressure. More pressure means faster decisions. That's how momentum builds in situations like this. It doesn't explode immediately, it grows. Quietly at first. Then louder. Then unavoidable. And right now, the Fever are approaching that point. Where the situation can't just be managed, it has to be resolved. Because the league isn't just watching anymore. It's evaluating. And once evaluation turns into interest, the next step is action. Now the Indiana Fever are at the point where they can't delay anymore. What started as a quiet contract decision has now turned into a real test of leadership, planning, and vision. Because sooner or later, they have to decide what Justine Pissott actually is to this team. Is she just a developmental piece, or is she part of the rotation? That sounds like a simple question, but the answer changes everything. If the Fever decide she's just a long-term project, then they stay patient. They keep her in the same role, limit her opportunities, and focus on their current core. That means trusting players like Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and the established rotation to carry the team forward. And to be fair, that approach makes sense. This team is built to compete. They have talent. They have structure. They have players who already understand their roles. Changing that too quickly could disrupt chemistry. But here's the problem with that approach. It assumes everything will go according to plan. And in sports, it rarely does. Injuries happen. Slumps happen. Matchups change. And when those things happen, teams need flexibility. They need options. They need players who can step in and make an impact immediately. That's where Pissott comes in. Because if she's ready, and all signs suggest she might be, then keeping her limited doesn't just slow her down, it limits the team as well. Now let's look at the other side. If the Fever decide she deserves a real opportunity, then they have to make a move. And that's where things get complicated. Because giving her a full roster spot isn't just about belief, it's about sacrifice. Someone else has to lose their place. That's the part nobody talks about. Every roster decision in professional sports comes with a cost. Adding one player often means removing another. And those aren't easy conversations. These are real players, real careers, real contracts. So now the Fever front office is facing a difficult question. Who are they willing to give up to make room for potential? That's not just a basketball decision, that's a leadership decision. Because it sends a message to the entire team. If they reward performance and potential, it tells players, earn it, and you'll get your chance. But if they stick strictly to contracts and seniority, it sends a different message. Your role is already decided. Both approaches have consequences. And both affect how players think, compete, and trust the system. This is where coaching becomes just as important as management. Head coach Stephanie White isn't just managing lineups, she's managing expectations. She has to keep veterans engaged, rookies motivated, and the entire team focused on winning. But when a situation like this develops, balance becomes harder. Because now there's a visible gap between what's happening in practice and what's happening in games. And players notice that. They always do. Now, let's talk about timing again, because it matters more than anything right now. The Fever don't have unlimited time to figure this out. The longer they wait, the more complicated it becomes. If they act early, they control the situation. If they wait, the situation starts controlling them. That's the difference between proactive and reactive teams. And the best organizations. They act before things get out of hand. They recognize value early. They adjust quickly. They stay ahead of problems instead of chasing them. That's what separates good teams from great ones. So the question becomes, what kind of team do the Fever want to be? A team that sticks to the plan no matter what? Or a team that adapts when new opportunities appear? Because Pissott isn't just a challenge, she's an opportunity. An opportunity to add size, shooting, and energy. An opportunity to deepen the rotation. An opportunity to build something stronger than originally planned. But only if they are willing to make a tough decision. And tough decisions define seasons. One move can change a rotation. One rotation change can shift momentum. One shift in momentum can define a playoff run. That's how small decisions turn into big outcomes. Right now, the Fever are standing right at that point. Where one choice can shape everything that follows. Do they stay patient and risk losing value? Or do they act now and take control of the situation? There's no perfect answer. But there is one truth they can't ignore anymore. This situation isn't going away. It's only getting bigger. And as it grows, so does the pressure to respond. Because eventually, every team reaches a moment where they have to choose between comfort and growth. And right now, that moment is here for the Indiana Fever. Now everything comes down to one final reality: the Indiana Fever can't stay in the middle anymore. This situation has moved past development, past planning, and past quiet decision-making. It's now about action. Real action. Because once a player like Justine Pissott openly shows she's ready for more, the clock starts ticking. And in professional sports, hesitation is costly. If the Fever move forward and give her a real opportunity, they send a powerful message. They show that performance matters. That belief in talent matters. That if you earn it, you get it. That kind of culture builds strong teams, motivated players, and long-term success. But if they hesitate, if they delay, if they try to hold everything together without making a clear decision, then the risk becomes real. Because the league is still watching. Other teams are still evaluating. And opportunities don't stay still. If another franchise steps in and gives Pissott the role she's asking for, everything changes instantly. What was once a controlled situation becomes a missed opportunity. And worse than that, it becomes a visible mistake. Because if she succeeds somewhere else, everyone will connect the dots. That's the player they had, and didn't use. That's the kind of narrative no team wants attached to them, especially not a team trying to build around stars like Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston. And that's why this decision matters more than it seems. It's not just about one roster spot. It's not just about one rookie. It's about identity. What kind of organization are the Fever going to be? A team that plays it safe? Or a team that recognizes value and acts on it? Because championship teams don't just rely on stars, they maximize every piece they have. They don't ignore potential. They don't delay tough choices. They adapt, they evolve, and they move forward. Right now, the Fever have a chance to do exactly that. They have a player who's ready. A situation that demands clarity. And a moment that requires leadership. But moments like this don't last forever. Eventually, a decision has to be made. And when that decision comes, it won't just define Justine Pissott's future. It will define the direction of the Indiana Fever.